As usual, here are all the pieces that I will be using. So I'm going to pin the felt piece to the fabric, draw all the lines, and make a straight stitch just to give that flower shape and cushion effect, making sure that I'm going all the way to the center so that I have a spot for the middle piece. Then I'll trim off some excess fabric, make it a little easier to work with, and make a cut in each indent. Then I can start stuffing each section, folding over all three sides, use some pins, and sew each piece shut. And then repeat the same stuffing, folding, and sewing process for all the remaining sections. Now that all the sections are done, I'm going to make the middle button. I only had orange felt, so I'm going to make it a little more elevated with some white felt, and then just sew around the outer pieces so it has a slightly stuffed or cushiony look. You can just leave it at that, or you can just continue sewing around the outer part to give it a more rounded look. Now for the sides, I have to sew together some blue and red fabric, and because I want to avoid any fraying, I'm just going to fold and sew together the edges. Just try to make sure that the lines are as straight as possible. I mean, you're going to be sewing some decorations on, so don't worry too much about that. I'm going to use the double needle approach, so one thread, one needle on each end, just so I can sew in two different directions and adjust it as I am closer to the end so I know where to finish it off. Then I'm going to sew this gold filigree leaf design just for that decoration, making a few short pieces so then I can go around the outside and just keep sewing to make sure it's well attached. Adding on the next piece, making sure that that is also well attached, and then making sure that I measure where the cloth has to end with the felt pieces so I know how much of the gold to sew. Then I'll add in all the felt pieces, pin them in. I'm just going to fold and not cut the fabric until the very end pieces, so then I can fold that over that curve and just make sure that every piece is carefully tucked in. Then I will start by sewing the bottom and the top using a matching thread. And I'll switch over to a blue thread to match the cloth. The sides can easily become detached, so I try to be careful with those stitches before moving on to the sides and the top. Add some stuffing and sew it shut, just going along the line and using a matching color thread. So I'll usually do the top first and then the bottom because I'll have to switch to red. Then for the next panel, sewing one side shut, adding the stuffing, and sewing the last side. Repeat this for all the remaining panels and make sure they're all well stuffed. Now that the sides are done, I'm going to close the arch by doing a looping stitch from behind. Again, I don't want to see the thread from the front, just on the back side, so I try to make sure that the thread and needle don't go all the way to the front. Here's the fabric and felt for the face, some black for the details, and then the eyes. Now there's no light in them, so I don't have to worry about adding beads or felt, just making sure everything fits, trim the fabric, and then sew everything down. Just make sure that little piece is secured before adding the eyes. And then an upside down Y for the mouth. Once again, I want to use matching threads to attach any pieces. This time is the face. So blue around the top and then red on the sides. And then I'll be able to start working on the arms and the tail. Again, cutting out the pieces, sewing around the outer perimeter, flipping it inside out, and adding the stuffing. I'll just secure the end of the tail, cut some little white strips of cloth for the bandage, and then wrap it around and just shallow stitches to make sure it stays in place. This is the exact same method for the arms. Then I'll attach the tail to the side of the arch, just folding it over for that swishing look, carefully sewing the side and making sure that the thread doesn't go all the way through, so just the inner side of the tail. Then add the arms in a similar fashion, sewing it to the extra fabric of the face, and then adding the other arm and making sure those are connected as well. And now it's time to add the cushion. So just angled stitches to make sure that it's well connected, folding the parts that are in between the felt panels. Now for the best part, stuffing, some love, and more stuffing to protect it. Add on the base piece and just sew with straight stitches.